one of the amazing things that can happen when you're creating content is you're sharing with the world, hey, here's what I'm an expert on, or here's how I want you to perceive me. And then from there, that can turn into relationships or opportunities that can really help you propel your career, propel your business, propel both if you've got a side hustle, which is something that's so amazing.
Welcome to The Business of You, the show that empowers you to put yourself out there and build your personal brand. I'm your host, Michelle Griffin, helping you each week with expert tips, inspiring stories, and personalized coaching so you can master your reputation and build your future, showing up as the brand and business of you. I'm excited you're here. Now let's get going with today's show. Today, super excited to have my friend and literally a marketing genius, the Hay House bestselling author of Market Your Genius book. And also her company is Market Your Genius, and all the things she does is Market Your Genius. So welcome to the show, Nikki Nash. It is so good to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
So Nikki, where do we start with this? Why is content and opportunities so important?
Yeah, I think it goes back to really understanding at our core, all we're trying to do as human beings is build relationships. And on top of that, whether you are working for yourself or you're working at a company, the other key piece outside of building relationships is your brand and your how people perceive you and what your reputation is. And so one of the amazing things that can happen when you're creating content is you're sharing with the world, hey, here's what I'm an expert on, or here's how I want you to perceive me. And then from there, that can turn into relationships or opportunities that can really help you propel your career, propel your business, propel both if you've got a side hustle, which is something that's so amazing.
Yeah, no, that's really, really important because content is, you don't have to have your own business. You don't have to be an entrepreneur. Everyone should be creating content as best they can. I always say the content is the fuel. So I know you work with a lot of your clients and you, let's just say you've been on both sides too. You've worked in corporate, I think at Intel. Tell us some of the big companies you worked with and brands you've worked with, because you've seen both sides of the coin.
Absolutely. I started in publishing. So I worked at InStyle magazine and Travel and Leisure magazine, and I worked at an ad agency on the Kraft Foods account. I've worked at Intel. I've done work with LVMH, which is Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy. It's just been incredible to work with not only big brands, but I've also done work with startups and small businesses. And so one of the things that I learned when I was at Intel in 2011 from my manager was the importance of really positioning yourself as an expert and getting known and having people know who you are, because that makes such a difference when you're looking for a promotion, right? Or something along those lines. And so I took that to heart. And a lot of what I learned about building my brand internally at the company, I used when I started building my business.
Yeah. And that business is called Market Your Genius with Nikki Nash, which I think it's coming in 7-8 years now. Is that right?
It is 6 years full time.
Okay.
And I had it as a side hustle before I really realized what a side hustle was before that. So it's been a while.
Yeah. So you had to get out. So you've known both sides, how to work content both ways. So Nikki, if someone wants to start doing content and getting that opportunity, where do you start? What are some of the deep dives you really work on with your clients in content marketing? I know that's kind of like your specialty and your favorite area of marketing, right?
Yeah. And I think it starts with understanding at least my definition of content. Right. And so for me, the definition of content is something that another person can, see or listen to, or essentially watch, one of those three senses, right? They're reading, they're watching, or they're listening to. And so the goal is typically to either educate someone, entertain them, that sort of path, right? And when I started doing things at Intel, my content wasn't online. Actually, my first content was a lunch and learn series that I held every month called Getting Social with Nikki. And every month I would do a deep dive into a new social media platform and share that with folks. And so I really think that's important because I think so many people think, oh my gosh, content, I don't want to be on all of the social media platforms, or I don't want to record video, and that may not make a difference for my career. But there are so many things that you can do, especially if you're in-house somewhere. I did lunch and learns where I taught every month. I had a coworker, shout out to David, who had a newsletter that he would send out internally every week and also externally. It just went to people who asked for it. And it was just, here's a recap of what's going on in his area of expertise. And so I think when you are looking to position yourself as a go-to expert, you can do things in a number of ways. And then when I started my business, I started going live. That was my way of creating content because I knew that I could pick a topic, jot down some important things that I wanted to teach, and then just start talking about it. And so that's how I started. And that evolved to also having a blog and having micro content on different social media platforms, and ultimately writing a book and having a podcast. So there's so many things that can fall under content. And I started, in all honesty, with what could be considered workshops, right? But I consider that content as well.
That's a great point. I always say we shouldn't always stay on one land, right? Go have your own house, not a rental on LinkedIn. And sounds like you've tackled every single content medium. So that's another thing. If you aren't comfortable maybe here, we want you to be here, but go find other places. I want you right now, because we're in the middle of our 365 challenge community I have here. A lot of people are just getting on LinkedIn for the first time. And, it takes a while to get traction with any content creation. I know in your book, and I've heard you say, can you tell us about how you started going live on Facebook? Because this is a little lesson here. And then you stopped and some of the things you found. Can you tell us that story real quick? It's really good.
Absolutely. I started a show on Facebook Live, and this was back in, I want to say 2016, I think. Years or so, like I have no concept of time anymore. But I started this show called Content and Coffee. And I had what felt like a brilliant idea. I was like, I'm going to go live. I'm going to teach people about content marketing and how they can use it to grow their business and build their brand. And I started going live every day. And I would go live really, in all honesty, at the beginning, I went to my parents' house into what we call the Christmas room. And it's the room that we really only go into when we're all together for Christmas. And it feels a little Downton Abbey for anybody who knows Downton Abbey. It's like the fancy room, right? And I thought that's who I needed to be and how I needed to show up to be seen as an expert, right? And we can talk about that later. But I started doing this daily, right? And then what happened is I said, daily's a lot, and I don't really know if anybody's watching and nobody's really commenting. So I moved to weekly. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this every week, just once a week, put out some content. And then after a while, I'm like, this really isn't doing anything for my business. Why am I doing this? And so weekly became sporadically, and then sporadically became dead. Like it just stopped. And what ended up happening is months later, and I'm talking maybe 6, 7, 8, 9 months later, I had someone sign up for a $10,000 package who said, wow, I've watched your lives. I learned so much from your content. It was so great. And I'm now finally ready to work with you. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there going, this person I had no idea was watching, never commented, never liked, never engaged, right? And as I started sharing this story with people about content, people watching were like, oh yeah, I never comment. I usually just am a silent observer, but since you just said something about it, I'm commenting, right? So shout out to anybody who actually comments on this. Kudos to you. I appreciate it. But it made me feel as a content creator that nobody was watching anyway. It wasn't really helping grow my business. Why am I doing that? And it ended up being something that I had to reinvest time and energy in. It wasn't it didn't come back as the same exact format, but I realized, wow, people are paying attention, whether they are sharing that with you or making it obvious or not.
That is a great lesson, especially for LinkedIn. They say around 95% of the people here they just watch on the sidelines, and that's fine. But for the people who are creating, it can get sometimes frustrating because you don't see the results. And so lesson learned from Nikki, even though that was Facebook, She landed a huge client and opportunity. So keep going. People see you whether you know it or not. You got to stay in the long game. So that's a little side lesson. So thank you for sharing. That's in your book. I've heard you say that, and that's just a great lesson. So let's get back into getting on that content and the flow. So now that you've defined what content is and it doesn't have to be on social media, what would the next step be, Nikki, that you recommend?
I really encourage people to think about what they want to be seen as the expert in and choose a topic that they can speak about for the next 5 years consistently, right? Say, I'm going to go all in and being an expert on this. For me, I've stayed really in the realm of marketing. I would really sit down and go, okay, listen, what do I want to be known for? Maybe you want to be known as the football person, right? Mm-hmm. Or maybe you want to be known as a marketing person or a salesperson or personal branding person, but get clear on what you want to be known for. And then from there, really go and choose. What I would encourage you to do is choose a medium and a platform, right? So choose, is this going to be written? Is it going to be audio? Is it going to be video? How am I going to show up consistently? And then create what I would call a weekly show. And that's something where you can literally release something every week, almost same time, same channel. It could be something live like this, where you say, hey guys, every week I'm going to go live and interview someone, or I'm going to share content. It could be a podcast, it could be a blog. And I recommend once a week just to help build consistency with an audience, but you can choose. It might make more sense for you to go once a month. It might make sense for you to go 3 times a week. You really get to choose, but I like to start with once a week and then decide to add or not add. I think it all depends on what your end goal is. And so if your end goal is to move upward, in corporate, right? It's likely your category will likely be relevant to your career. If you're trying to build a business, then I would think about what is the business that you're looking to build. And I would, pick a topic along those lines. If you're doing this for fun because you love it, choose something that you enjoy. My personal feeling is that most people get niching wrong, and we can talk about niching in a little bit if you'd like, but for you to consistently create content, it should be on something that you thoroughly enjoy doing. And it really helps if it's easy for you to do, but easy could be because you read on the topic constantly and you read up on it. It could be because you've helped people get results. It could be because you just want to interview people on the topic and you don't need to be the expert, but you just find people in that industry. So personally, I would say, I would choose something that either makes strategic sense for your career or business, and or something that you're really passionate about. And I don't think you need to jump around to find like what sticks. I think there is a market for pretty much everything, including like basket weaving. Shout out to anybody who basket weaves. I do not, but like there is a market for so many things. And so it's more about finding something that you can consistently speak about and then finding the audience for it. Now, this is a little bit different. If you're literally building a business around it, we'd look at niching a little bit differently. But for content creation, especially if this is pre-business or you're early in your career and you're seriously just trying to, create content around something that interests you, I think go with what you like versus talking about a lot of different things to see what other people jive with.
That's really good. So for fun or business, it has to be something you like and you can sustain. Great advice. Want to give a shout out to Sharon and Denise and Anna. We're glad we uncovered your settings issues, so we can see you next time. What would you say next for the content?
Yeah, journey? I think we can expand on niching a little bit and then continue with what the steps are. The reason why I look at niching a little bit differently is that because I have this water bottle here, right? So I have this water bottle, and let's say this is my product. Niching to me doesn't mean that I created this water bottle for people working at home that aren't drinking a lot of water, right? It means that I created the water bottle. Maybe it's eco-friendly or it does something. I created it for a reason, and I market it specifically to different target audiences. And at the beginning, you have one target audience that you're going after, and that could be like the niche audience that you're going after, but that can expand over time. And the best example I got was from a guy who was I think he was in venture capitalism. a venture capitalist in Massachusetts, and we met once because I belonged to this organization and they were doing mentor hour. But he taught me this. I don't remember his name. I feel very badly about it, but I will never forget what he taught me. And he is a veteran. And he said, if you were going to war, and this is the beach, you were going to war on the beach. And let's say this hand are your troops. If you are listening, visualize that I have a hand flat, like just palm up in front of me. And I have another hand, right? And my right hand. And he would say, if the flat hand is the beach, you wouldn't send your troops to the whole beach just scattered. You would choose an edge of that beach and conquer it, and then take the next adjacent and the next adjacent and the next adjacent. And the same is true for selling a product to a niche, right? You go, okay, this is a specific audience that I think would really benefit from it. You get traction, you get momentum there. Then once you've owned the market or you have good market share or good brand awareness there, you look at what's the next adjacent target audience that I can go after, right? And so I really encourage people, as you're thinking about, wow, I'm creating this content, who am I going to market it to? Who's going to read it? I would say that it's not for everyone, right? But you can start with, who is it for right now? Who can I get the most momentum with? Who will be my biggest fans that will share it and love it? And let's start with them, because they'll help with word of mouth and other areas get it in front of more people.
That is so good. And I do that with branding too, like find a lane and be known for that. You can't be known, as you know, for everyone. So questions on I need to scroll up a minute. There was a great question about reaching your audience. And I want to keep us on track there too. So we might come back in the comments, but don't find one area to be. Now, how do we do that in our content, Nikki? Like, how should someone, I guess I'm thinking just talk about the pain points, but what would you suggest to get like really niche in that area so they know exactly who you're talking to?
Right. And I think what you can do, if you haven't started creating content yet, but you know that you can help people with your content, typically people are reading it because they want a problem solved or they have a question or something along those lines. That's the concept around Googling something, right? You have a question and you land on a piece of content. And so what I encourage people to do is get clear on the types of problems that they can help solve. Maybe it's a bigger category of a problem, and then there's obviously subcategories in it. And you get clear on, okay, this is the problem that I'm solving. Maybe the problem is somebody has a big dream to live abroad, but they don't know how to move into another country. Maybe it's somebody wants to move up in their career, but they're not sure how. Maybe somebody wants to learn how to get a new client, right? You choose the category and the problem that you can solve, and then sit down and figure out who would have that type of problem and brainstorm all the potential target audiences or niches or however you want to look at it that could have that problem. And then you have a couple of options. You can choose one because you know that you'll resonate with them. You can interview or set up time with a bunch of people who fall into that category. And you can do simple things, right? Post on LinkedIn, hi, who has always wanted to write a book and isn't sure what next step to have, right? I'm making that up. But if I was a book editor or a book publisher or something along those lines, then all those people who comment, I just say, hey, do you have a few minutes to talk? And then figure out, okay, these are the different audiences I could go after. Which one do I feel like I can resonate with? Which one feels like the biggest part of the market? You can choose how you want to slice it. But that's how I would approach figuring out who to create content for. And that exercise, that market research, will also help you figure out what specific content pieces you can create based off of what their questions are or things that they say.
That's really good. So the ultimate goal is to interview people. I know we can go online and try to mine people's problems, but the ultimate goal at the end of the day is to actually speak to someone and hook it to like an otter AI. You're going to get their exact language and their pain points like you can't even, find online. So any tips on once you get that problem, what would be the next step to turn those content into conversations?
Yeah. So I would say once you go, okay, I'm going to do a weekly program. I know what the category or the topic is. I know who I'm trying to attract with my content. And I would sit down and come up with what are some of the questions or things that I want to to discuss? What questions do I essentially want to answer? I highly recommend using a search engine tool like SEMrush, or Neil Patel has Uber Suggest. But these are tools where you can type in words and figure out what are the questions that people are commonly asking. And from there, you know what type of content you may want to create, or it helps the brainstorming. Once you know the content that you're creating, you can start figuring out how you best want to use it to reach your ultimate goal. And I might not have said this at the beginning, but step like step 0 is to figure out why you're creating content in the first place. What is your end goal? Is it because you want more clients? Is it because you want to position yourself as an expert internally at a company? Is it because you're trying to network and build relationships with people in the industry? What is it that you're looking to have happen? What will success look like for you? And when you're clear on what success looks like for you, you can then use the content in different ways. And I'll give a couple of examples. If I am looking for clients for a business, or maybe I'm selling an online course or something along those lines, I may have content where I answer a question, share knowledge, and then I may have a simple call to action that says, if you are struggling with this problem, right? And you would like even more support than this video or this article or whatever I shared, please send me a DM or comment below. I'd love to learn more about your problem and see if I can help support you, right? And when you explicitly ask people to take action, that starts a conversation, right? As people comment to your videos, just send them a direct message. Thank you so much for watching. Do you have any other questions? Literally spark conversations with the people that are engaging with you. And one of the biggest mistakes that I made early on when I shared that nobody was commenting or engaging, I never asked for engagement. I never gave people a reason to engage. But when I started saying things like, if you have a problem, put your problem in the comments below. If you have a question, put it in the comments below. I will answer you. Then people are like, oh, wow, well, I have questions. Let me get answers. And that can start conversations. If I'm in, for example, sales, I may create content, typical questions that I know come up on my sales conversations or about the industry. And I can use that, again, to build relationships and say, wow, this person has been wondering about something new going on in the industry, or they had a question. I already created content on it. Let me send it to them to add value to their life. Even if I haven't, especially if I haven't closed the sale yet, and especially after you've closed the sale. It's all about building relationships. And if you create content from the core premise of, I'd like to add value to someone else's life, whether it's still having an end goal, clients, sales, upward mobility, and corporate. But those things, when you have those things in mind, you can create content and then use it in a way that best serves your goal, but also adds value to someone else's life.
Wow, so much value you just dropped here. Thank you, Nikki. And that's so right. I see if you don't ask, you're not going to get an answer. So why not put it out there? I really like the idea of, even sometimes people are leery to, DM you, but put it in the comments, and then just start with a conversation. And I think being on LinkedIn, there's some people who are doing just hitting us right in the DMs. I'm sure you get that too, Nikki. And it's like, whoa. So we're kind of conditioned to kind of back off, right? So when you're just constantly the content, and they see you as that helpful person, I think it's going to soften that, right? Soften that relationship. And then, so once someone comments or DMs you, you do the conversation like, hey, here's something. Can you walk me through how you can nurture that without sounding kind of salesy or spammy? What's an authentic way to do it?
Absolutely. And one of the biggest things that I always encourage people to do, and this is from the beginning of the DM process, if you ask other people to send you a DM, then they're opting in. And so it's not spammy off the beginning because they've raised their hand and said, I would like to be in conversation with you. When they comment below, I say things like, is it all right? Oh, great question. Is it all right if I send you a DM? Or I wrote an article about it. Is it okay if I DM it to you, or something along those lines, right? And so I start there. And then once we're in a conversation, whether it's in the comments or through direct messaging, I just go, hi, tell me more about what you're dealing with, or I'd love to answer your question more. Can I ask you for more information? Wow, that's such a great question. My answer is actually a little bit long. Is it okay if we just hop on the phone really quickly for me to help you? You have to read the room almost, or the relationship, but it's no different than meeting someone in real life at a networking event, right? Typically after the event, you want to stay in contact, just be of service, answer their questions, ask them questions about themselves. And if you're trying to sell something, really get enough information to know if your product or service is truly right for them. Because if you believe it's truly right for them, then it's just saying, hey, I thank you so much for answering my questions. I've got some insight. I have this product or service or offering that I think would be really great for you to help solve X, Y, and Z problem. Are you open to a conversation about it? And then it's not like when I get messages, and I put this in a book, where somebody DMs me and is basically asking me to buy from them from the first message, and then ghosts me when I say no, thank you, or defriended me, right? It's so rude. Just treat human beings like the human beings that they are. And Absolutely. So I don't have a exactly, here's what you say script, but really read, okay, let me just see how I can be of service. Let me see if I know what's right for, or if I have a feeling that what I'm offering is right for them, and then offer it. It's no different than saying, wow, you love horror movies? I heard this new horror movie came out. Do you want to go see it? Right? Like with me, it's just like that. Wow, you're struggling with sales. I literally have a program to help people with sales. Would you like that program, or would you like to learn more about it? No pressure, right? Like just to decide if it's right for you. Side note, I do not have a program for sales, but I just wanted to.
Yeah, no, that's so good. Just be natural. And I think just being on digital makes us all just a little off. I'm going to show a comment here from Cora, because I know you said you're in that article, on that Facebook Live thing, you didn't have a comment or call to action. So she's saying, what if no one's responding? Your key to A. I see the work for companies, people with larger followings, but it's challenging to get that kind of engagement when you're small and growing your following. Now, Nikki, tell me from experience, from all the clients you help, what would you tell her?
I'd say, first off, thank you for your question. I would start by saying that, and I have a strategic answer, but I also have almost like a, I don't know, woo answer. But I feel like when you go into it believing something is hard and that people aren't going to comment, then that's what you attract, right? And so what I like to do is I see everything as a science experiment. And so if I'm putting content out in the world and nobody's commenting, nobody's liking, nobody's engaging, then I sit down and I go, okay, well, let me see what I did during that piece of content. Were people dropping off after 5 minutes and I didn't have a call to action until the minute 10, which is why nobody wrote anything, right? Or did I never ask for a call to action? I like to encourage and train people to get used to commenting before I have a true call to action. It's almost like if you think about dating, because I love dating analogies, usually you don't walk up to someone and go, will you marry me? Right? Usually there are many, M-A-N-Y, many M-I-N-I proposals before then. Like, can I have your number? Do you want to go on a first date? Do you want to go on a second date? Do you want to go on a third date? Do you want to, go on vacation together? There's so many yeses before the big yes, right? And so think of it this way. Hey, I'm just going to pretend that I'm live doing a video. Hi, guys. If you are struggling with getting more dream clients, in this video, I'm going to give you my top 5 tips for getting more dream clients this week. If you would love that, give me a heck yeah in the comments below, right? I start off with, hey, if you have this problem, tell me you have this problem at the beginning. And I encourage people to comment all throughout so that if somebody didn't watch till minute, 75, I don't do 75-minute lives, but I'm exaggerating on purpose. But if people don't make it to the end, make sure you have some call to actions early on, enough for you to go, wow, they must have a problem that I'm dealing with. Let me ask them more questions. Let me connect with them. And that's something that I was not doing. I would do 20-minute lives. And the only time I asked anybody to do anything was at minute 20. And not everybody watches to the end. And so you want to encourage people to comment below. Hey, anybody who's watching live, let me know where you're from. Michelle did it. If you're watching the replay, comment below, right? Like those sorts of things. Whether you're watching live or the replay, leave your question below. I will come back and read your questions. Things like that.
Yes, exactly. And that's another prompt to shout out to everyone watching live or the replay. Nikki and I will be answering your questions. I mean, here's your opportunity to hit up Marketing Your Genius and all the things she knows. So please take her up on it. I know not everyone's watching live, but there are amazing amount of people who will be watching this on the replay, even maybe the podcast. So you never know. So okay, Nikki, you've dropped so much value. And I want to shout out to Denise, who says she's learning a lot today. Thank you, ladies. Love your show, Michelle Griffin. Thank you, Denise. Nikki is so good about content. So tell us what else we need to know. And then we're going to head on out with the 3 takeaways and some of your professional and personal mantras to keep us going in content creation. So what's the next step, Nikki?
Yeah, I would say that the best thing that you can do once you have those pieces in place, because it's simple, it's what's my big goal? What am I going to talk about? Who do I want to reach? What are some of the questions that I want to answer? And how will I build a relationship with someone, right? How do I get people to engage and build that relationship? The most important thing is to be consistent. And I shared that at the beginning. I was not consistent at the beginning and it hurt me, right? Just be consistent. It takes everybody a different amount of time to start getting real traction and seeing results from putting content out there. Some of the results may happen without you really knowing it for a while, right? And so I encourage you to stay consistent. And that's why I say whatever you choose to stick with, whether it's weekly, monthly, be consistent with it. And I also really encourage people to try not to be on too many platforms, because that typically, unless you have a big team, right? Like when I worked at Intel, there was a big team of people doing marketing, right? So they could be on Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, all of the platforms, because they had people managing it, Twitter, right? But if you're a person of one, choose a place that you feel like you could really get some traction to start, and you can always build and add to it, but start smaller than you probably think you need to, just to start getting consistent action and some momentum.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Just like we said, find that one lane we can own, find that one platform and that one medium, and then build really deep in there and then go from there. So that's another thing when I work with my clients, they think, and everyone does, they think they need to be everywhere. And by being everywhere, they'll see you, but actually that's the reverse. So find the place that you can sustain, the way you can do it. So Nikki, what's the final take through when you're getting in there, you're seeing some consistency. You gave us a framework on how to be a human and start a conversation. I know you love data and metrics and measurement. Any advice on that front?
Yeah. So there are 2 things that I would say. The first thing I would say is around specifically like data and metrics is to choose your KPIs, your key performance indicators, based off of your goals and keep track of everything. That's another thing that I did not do when I had the Content and Coffee show at first, because I didn't know how many people were watching, how long were people watching, what percentage of people, shared it or did anything, right? And so in my mind, I felt like nobody was watching, nobody cared, this is failing. But on paper, I had nothing because I wasn't tracking anything. So sit down and go, okay, how will I know if content marketing for me is successful? And for you, it could be different things. It could be, I want clients. It could be, I want to grow my list. It could be, I want to grow my following. It could be, I just want to be seen as an expert in an area so that when I go out for job interviews, people see me a certain way, right? So you choose what success looks like for you and keep track of that consistently. And then what I always encourage people to do is, I have a framework around it, but you make your marketing plan, your game plan, your content plan, you implement that plan, right? Then you look at the results and you tweak what you're doing based off of the results, right? And so I really encourage you to keep track of things, use that data for insights, and tweak your habits accordingly. And the final piece I'll say is to remember that Field of Dreams lied to you. If you're using that analogy for content marketing, if you build it, they won't come, right? So don't forget that if you feel like nobody's watching your content, then ask yourself, are you doing anything for people to watch or consume your content? Are you sharing, your podcast places? Are you inviting people to watch you live on LinkedIn? Are you commenting on other people's posts so that they start seeing your name everywhere and then going, you know what, they comment on my stuff, I want to comment back on theirs? Are you doing anything to bring eyeballs to your content? And if the answer is no, then start thinking about ways in which you can do that.
The law of reciprocity is so, so big. As we close out today, I'm going to ask you, what are some of the 3 top takeaways? I know you shared so much, or maybe you want to share the 3 takeaways that we shouldn't do. Sometimes it's the 3 quick things. Don't even think about anything. The law of 3 that you can share with us.
Well, 3 is my lucky number and my favorite number. I'll say 3 things. I don't know if they're going to be in the same category, but my 3 final words of wisdom is 1, don't overanalyze it, right? So often I see people who never get started because they're overthinking, what should I talk about? What should I do? If you truly are wondering what type of content you should be creating, just start creating content. You don't have to share it with anyone, but get used to creating, right? So tip 1, don't overanalyze it. Tip 2, just start. And to give you a inside of tip 2, what I did before I went live is I just recorded videos on my phone and sent them to a person, right? I just got used to speaking essentially to myself. And then I did it for a week and I was like, I can do this. And then suddenly I was able to go live, but I had to get over the fear of, what if I mess up? What am I doing? Can I even do this? Is this going to be hard? So you can just get started. And the third thing I will say is, nobody is going to beat you up as much as you are. Mm-hmm. So, just go into it with the mindset, and this is what I do, is that if what I'm sharing is of value to someone, then it's worth it. Doesn't matter if it's one person, doesn't matter if it's not anybody live, and know that your content that you create is repurposable. Right? Mm-hmm. So even if you create something and you have 0 people following you and nobody seems to watch it at the beginning, you keep going. Eventually you'll have an audience and you can go back and reuse and repurpose that old content that you create, and everything that you do will get better. That was probably more than 3, but I'm going to pretend that those were 3.
Oh yeah. And you mentioned the word I was going to bring up, but that was a whole nother conversation. My favorite thing is content repurposing. We'll have to talk about that in another show sometime, because I know that's one of your favorites. Great takeaways and a bonus too. So tell us, Nikki, you were full of wisdom and genius. What is your professional, personal mantra you want to share with us? Maybe to inspire us to do content, to stay out there, you name it. What's yours?
Yes. So my mantra, and it's what I tell all of my clients and what I tell myself, and it is to do less better. Just do less better. And so I think it could be easy to feel as though if you're getting into content, there will be so many tips and advice on all the things you can do. But I encourage you to choose one thing that you can commit to and do it really well, do it great, and be consistent with it. And you can always add. But when people try to do everything at once, it ends up failing, right? An analogy I had, there was a period of time where I stopped going to the gym. When I went back, I didn't try to do my normal I haven't been to the gym in a while workout. I just said, just go to the gym. I don't care what you do there, but if you can go consistently for 4 weeks, then you can come up with an actual real workout plan. But just go there, just get started. And so that's what I encourage people to do. Just do something, keep it simple, do it well, and you can always add to it if you want later.
Oh, that's so good. My mantra for this year, or my word or saying, is simplify to succeed, because I've been in that boat too, especially last year. So that's great advice. Here's another question I'm going to ask. So what advice do you have for creating content when you're not the content expert? I am working with my company leaders to make them thought leaders in their industry. I am facilitating these content opportunities. Good one for you, for someone who's worked in Intel and all those big companies, about how to do that.
Yep. So a couple of things I will say is that you don't have to be a content expert to start creating content. And I think that there are so many opportunities to create content. I would say that if you have company leaders that want to be seen as thought leaders, why not start with having them create content on somebody else's platform, right? Be a guest on a podcast, be interviewed in the media, something that doesn't have to be done in-house yet, right? And then start thinking, if you are going, wow, they want to be seen as a thought leader in the industry, and we're really working on those content opportunities, really encourage people to remember a few things. One, it's all about the audience and the end consumer, right? Whatever category they want to be a thought leader in, whoever wants their wisdom and knowledge, that's what you're creating the content for. So you want to ask yourself, where are they consuming content? How do they want to receive content? And keep it simple. You can, again, a simple way, start guesting on podcasts, get used to sharing your knowledge and experiences. Find out if they like podcasts. Then maybe you start a podcast internally at the company, or maybe it's being interviewed with people who have YouTube channels and then going from there. I try to keep it simple and really leverage people that already have an audience first so that you can get used to it and then go from there. That's what I say to most people. I didn't start that way. I just started going live, but I was really just playing with it. And so don't be afraid to play. Again, you can create content and not publish it anywhere just to get used to creating content. The more you do it and the more they do it, the better it gets.
Absolutely. So Nikki, where's the one place they can go to connect with you and learn more about what you do?
Yeah. So my website is nikkinash.co. It's not .com. So if you go to .com, it is a completely different person. So I've had people go, you're an artist? I'm like, that's not my website. And if you are on LinkedIn, I'm literally Nikki Nash. It's like / Nikki Nash, and you'll find me.
And she's got a great podcast called Market Your Genius, and her book that came out, last August?
August of 2021, also called Market Your Genius.
And that makes it easy, right? So so everything is under Market Your Genius and nikkinash.co. So go check her out for sure. She's got a wealth of information. Will you come back sometime soon to talk about some other part of content or repurposing or something like that? Can we get you back?
Or marketing, anything. Absolutely. I would love to. And again, you guys get better over time. I just wanted to repeat that for anybody who's like, I can't do this.
Yes. The important thing is to put yourself out there, right? That's my mantra. It doesn't start. Action breeds clarity. Until next time, keep putting yourself out there. Take care, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. We need more impactful professionals, entrepreneurs, and leaders just like you getting out there sharing your expertise. So if you'd like to know more about how I can help you or your team grow your professional personal brand, please check out yourbrandyourbusiness.com. And until next time, you have a brand to build, a message to share, and people to impact. Now go put yourself out there and watch the business of you grow.